Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the Tea Time with Dr. Tarver. Is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Here we are in Mental Health Awareness May, and we are talking about stigma and living naked and unashamed and all of the things that interfere with our wellness. And I have a special guest on today who is going to help us get our whole lives together as we discuss We Do Say Gay, parenting, HIV, AIDS, and challenging stigma. You all know I like to get going on time and not want to waste it by doing too much talking. So it is my sincere pleasure to introduce Mr. Tony Christian Walker. Tony Christian Walker is the Alabama Workforce Equity Coordinator for Jobs to Move America, which works to transform public spending and corporate behavior using a comprehensive approach that is rooted in racial and economic justice and achieved through community organizing. He is a longtime HIV survivor, and since beginning his work in HIV, has always focused on stigma reduction in all its forms. He's got some great points that talk about in order for us to eradicate the virus, we have to fight the following: poverty, educational disparities, homophobia, bigotry, and racism. All of these things play a part in the spread of the virus. People fear things that they don't understand, and he is using his person story and experiences to combat stigma, fear, and overall ignorance wherever it exists. There was a time when being HIV positive was a death sentence. Now the disease isn't killing people, fear is. Welcome, Mr. Tony Christian Walker, to Tea Time with Dr. Tarver.
What's going on? What's going on?
It is so good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on through. We're going to get on into this thing. We know that there is a lot of stigma around just being a Black gay male. And historically, there's been criticism, discrimination, all of that's within the LGBTQ community and the Black community. So talk to me just about, in general, what your experiences have been as a gay Black male who's openly gay and unashamed.
And unashamed. Openly gay, living with HIV, unashamed. So thank you for having me on your show. You know, we've been there together on this fight and on these discussions, and I love talking about stuff like this. But so like, in order to talk about that, I have to tell you how I identify, because everybody, you know, into how you identify. So I actually identify as a man who happens to be Black and gay, because I don't like leading with any of my marginalized identities. Not that they're not worthy of leading, but like I think a lot of times people lead with their level of marginalization in order to get sympathy, or we got a lot of people like playing the victim. And so like, I'm never going to be a victim for anything or anybody. So like, I don't lead with my levels of marginalization because I'm not a marginalized person. You know, I have these identities, but in no way am I not a fully realized person. But with that being said, always at a constant battle with my identities. Like my identities are like almost diametrically opposed to each other. So like my Blackness has my Southern Baptist roots. You know, the religious standpoints, a lot of that I've also outgrown because a lot of it was misquoted and mistaught, as we all know. But then I have my gay side. And so like anytime, you know, you deal with the gay side, it's usually led by white people. You know, a lot of people gave Dave Chappelle hell about his last two comedy things. They crossed a few lines. In no way am I saying that he did not cross a few lines. But then there were like some really, really strong nuggets of truth in it. And I think because people don't like him, then like all the things that he said, we just threw it all out. But you know, grandma used to say, take the stuff you can bite and then spit out the bones. Mm-hmm. But like whiteness, anytime we just talked about this, anytime a marginalized identity intersects with whiteness, it could be gay, it could be Judaism, it could be Latinx, it could be, you name it. But anytime it intersects with whiteness, these people are minorities when it's convenient. Mm. You know, I hate hearing about a minority business thing and it's a bunch of white women. You know, you are a minority in name because you're a woman, but you're white all the time. And so like, that's the weird dichotomy about that. So like, my gayness fights with my Blackness because my Blackness says my gay is wrong, and then my gayness, which is rooted in whiteness, says my blackness is wrong. And so, or not worthy. So like, it's really a tightrope.
You know what? I appreciate that, because a lot of times we don't think about all of those dynamics and how they intersect. Right. Because you're absolutely, which is why, like you talked about being a part of a marginalized group, you are so marginalized because of the things you just mentioned. And a lot of times people have this misperception that if one happens to be gay, one does not have a spiritual identity. And as you talked about in the Black community, we're very kind to you if you are a woman who happens to identify as lesbian in the Black community, but we are most definitely hard on you and discriminatory against you and say a lot of bigoted things towards you because you happen to be a Black male that is gay.
Well, you know, and that's because of the misogyny. So like, I've had friends who, I have a couple of trans male friends, so trans masculine friends who were born female and transitioned to male. And they will tell you, a lot of them will, the ones who don't want to play victims, they will tell you that when they transitioned to being male, that it was almost like pulling the curtain back on this little secret society that they didn't know existed. Because like, there's a lot of male bonding, there's a lot of misogyny that exists. And I don't care what anybody says, as a society, we hate women. And I'm not talking about gay people, I'm talking about straight people, I'm talking about society in general. We devalue women. So if you are a gay man, then you're already considered lesser because you're not a real man. And, you know, and I've like raised too many real men's children, you know, for them to even try to play that line with me. So like, there's a lot to do with misogyny. There's a lot to do with the devaluation of women. That we really need to think about when we talk about that.
And I do think that's an excellent point too to highlight, because of all of the stigma and the stereotypes that come along with being a male that identifies also as gay, happens to be gay. I like that wording, because I think a lot of times there is this perception that if you identify as gay, then you are less masculine. I've had very heated discussions with some men about, no, that's not a real man.
Or this, well, you don't look gay, or you don't act gay. And I'm like, you didn't see me in the bedroom, so you know how I act. And you just can't tell people that how they look. So yeah, that's very true. It's very true. And it's a problem for me, because your masculinity in no way makes you a real man or not. You know, and I hate when I hear these misogynistic brothers talk about, well, you know, you're a doggone punk. He ain't no real man. Well, I've raised about 4 kids that I did not father. Now, I have a biological son, and we'll probably talk about that later. But like, I got other kids. I'm raising my nephew as my own child. He's 17 years old, you know, and, you know, where's your father? You know, I'm your father. I'm your father, Luke.
Absolutely.
You know, so like, when you talk about real man taking care of business, I'm a real man who takes care of business. So, you know, and that has nothing to do with my identity. It's all about what you do.
But let's go on and jump into this parenting thing, because you are raising and have raised male children, and as we talk about this stigma and misogyny, the one thing that people always say is, I don't want a gay male raising a male child, because of this fear of what that will mean for this male child in their development. So would you mind speaking on that, sir?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you a little anecdotal story first.
Okay, go ahead.
So back in the early aughts, I worked at a radio station, 98.7 Kiss FM here in Birmingham. I was a sales manager for a few years, and there was a DJ, female DJ, single mother, who would bring her son into work with her sometimes, and she just leave him in the lobby, and he's about the same age as, because I raised two boys. So Maurice is my second time being a full-time parent.
Okay.
So like, I had my oldest son is 36. So my new son, my bonus son, is only 17. So I've raised children in the 90s as a gay man, and I'm also raised children in the 2000s as a gay man. But so anyway, so I noticed a little boy in the lobby while his mom's on the air. So I'm like, hey, does he have anybody? Where's his dad? His dad like, well, you know, he don't really see his dad. You know how blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, you know, I got 2 boys about his age. You know, I would love to hang out with him on the weekends. And I could, you know, and I had custody of my boys. Mm-hmm. So like, I want you to let that sink in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I had custody of my boys, right? So she was like, fine. So I picked him up for like maybe a month. Like every weekend, I take him and with my boys, and we just have fun. My boys liked him. And so one day, it was a Friday, and she calls me from the studio. And she's like, hey, I got something I need to ask you. I'm like, what? She goes, well, I got to ask you a question. I already knew where this was going because anytime anybody starts that conversation with me, I already know.
You already know.
Yeah. So she said, well, somebody said, then I really knew where it was going. I'm like, somebody said what? Well, somebody said you were gay. I'm like, I am. Well, how come you didn't tell me? Because I wasn't planning on having sex with you. But you hang out with my son. I said, I'm not planning on having sex with him either. Well, I'm not saying that, but you are saying that.
But you are saying that. You're implying that.
I'm a gay man with a young boy. That obviously, I'm also a pedophile.
Clearly, because those two go together.
Clearly, because those go together, right? So I was like, I don't see any point in telling you my private business like that. Well, I mean, I understand. So I'm like, well, are you okay with that? Yeah, I'm okay. I never saw that little boy again. I
was about to say, yeah. Clearly, you're not okay because we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We wouldn't have had this conversation. You know, whereas my best friend who had a younger child at the time, I've been around KD my whole life. He calls me Uncle Tony. He's straight as an arrow, which also I'm a grandparent. So it wasn't like the gay agenda was to take these two straight boys and make them gay. The agenda is to take these kids and let them be who they're going to be. Because,
and have somebody in their life who loves them unconditionally.
Right, because contrary to popular belief, gay people aren't trying to make straight kids gay. Straight people are trying to make gay kids straight. But we don't talk about that. They got even whole conversions where you literally traumatize a child out of their sexuality because you don't think it's right.
Psychology has been a part of that, unfortunately, in our history.
Unfortunately, but but it is what it is. So like back to being a parent. Being a parent the first time was fun. I had my oldest son was born when I was 19, so we kind of grew up together. When he and his brother were 9 and 7, I actually got custody of them. So I had custody of them for like 7 years, which was it was. Let me also say this: brothers who complain about child support, y'all need to shut up. Because child support is nothing when you got your freedom and your peace of mind. Like you can go wherever you want to go and they ain't got to worry about no babysitter. Shut up about that child support. Just shut up about it and pay it. And I don't care what she do with it, pay that damn child support. But like it was fun. Like my boys were boys. They both played sports, football, basketball. My youngest son had a football scholarship. My sexuality had nothing to do with the way I was raising them. You know, and I at no time like, you sure you don't want to be gay? Like we don't do that.
Y'all don't have those conversations. Right, like that's not a conversation.
But but that's what we are right now in society where the people who are actually doing the messed up stuff are accusing the people who aren't. Right. And we see it all the time. Think about Madison Cawthorn, the Republican who spilled the tea on the orgies that the Republican elected officials are having. They pretty much drowned him out. But that's been going on for a while. It's documented. Yeah. But that's what they're accusing of the Democrats of.
Right.
The stuff that you're doing. And that's the same thing straight people do to us. Like y'all accusing us of the stuff that y'all are doing. We ain't trying to talk about the children. There is no gay agenda.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, but I think it's important for people to hear that because there is this, I was telling you before, I grew up in this little small town in Mississippi. There is absolutely this perspective that yes, you are out here and you're preying on children, and you are trying to convert children over to like the gay agenda, and it's simply misinformation, which is what fuels this stigma.
Let me tell you something else, Dr. Dolores. I ain't gonna call you again. But let me tell you something else that bothers me. It's the fact that when you think about a child, like we're born who we're going to be, who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my parents were straight. My grandparents were straight. So if that worked, then there would be no gay people.
Right.
So like whether you call it choice, whether you call it whatever. There is no one trying to influence people into being something that they're not, and I just think people need to understand that because I'm pretty sure somebody listening go, oh, I never thought about that. We do try to convert them kids into being straight.
Absolutely.
That's what they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but being a parent, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. I've learned a lot. I think I'm a better parent now than I was before.
The first time around.
Yeah.
I think that's true of most parents.
It is. And you can tell when they become grandparents. Because like grandparents and parents are two totally different animals.
Absolutely.
Like, grandparents like, oh, we close. And the parents like, go in there. And
it does calm you.
Right. And as a grandparent, you realize the wrong stuff you did as a parent.
Right. And what matters. Yeah, not sweating the small stuff. But you mentioned the custody thing, so I do want to highlight that piece because there is often conversation about whether or not, we'll say a gay male should be able to get custody of male children. You mentioned that you got custody. Did it ever come up? Not that it was relevant to your parenting, but did it ever come up in that process?
Look, I actually wrote a book about it. Like here it goes.
Here it goes.
In my book, I wrote a book about 2 years ago called Walking in True Fatherhood. Shameless plug, it's on Amazon.
Not shameless because we were already gonna talk about it. So
all right, but in the book I talk about how my son's mom was not really doing right by them. She had this boyfriend, they were always going different places. She would always leave them at home. My oldest son was not doing well in school. They actually had him in special ed, like just because she didn't want to be a parent, right? And so when and if any of her relatives are listening, this is gonna be kind of shocking if y'all didn't read the book. But like when she gave me custody of them, so I knew she wasn't taking care of them when she was supposed to. Like literally, the oldest child was failing as a student, and every year she would call me around the last part of the year, like, "Hey, could you come help him with his homework?" And because the teacher said if his grades don't pick up, then he's gonna fail. So I go and do what I need to do. He get past the next grade. So one summer, me and my partner at that time, I was like, "Well, can I keep the boys for the summer?" And she was like, "Well, are you gonna stop the child support money?" I'm like, "No, you can keep the child support money. I just want to like have a chance to raise my boy." So they stayed with us the whole summer. At the end of the summer, I asked her, I'm like, "This has been great. Like, what about me being the primary?" Because she really did not have time. She did not have time. I don't want you to keep me because of your lifestyle. And I'm like, "Well, bitch, I'm glad you brought that up." My lifestyle has nothing to do with my kids. And I don't consider being gay a lifestyle. It's just who I am, you know. And so like, she was like, "Well, I don't, And my mother, talk about religion. My mother, she told me, she said, "Tony," she said, "Be still and let God fight your battles." And I'm not ultra religious, but I do know the power of prayer in context. I mean, people think they can pray and stop rain and stop all these guns. That ain't gonna work. But like literally, I prayed about it. And the Lord's like literally New Year's Eve of that following year, she called me out the blue. She said, "Come get them." I'm like, "Come get who?" "Come get the boys." I'm like, "Why?" "They don't want to do anything that I say, and I'm just tired. Come get them." I said, "Wait." I said, "Now, if I come get them, we have to do this right through the courts." Because even when I put myself in child support just because I didn't want no crap. Because I was paying child support when the first one was born, and she was getting aid for families with dependent kids. And I'm like, and they wanted me to pay that back. I'm like, "I'm paying child support. Like, well, I got to pay this too." But anyway, that's without the one. So I told her we go and do it legally. So we went through the custody change, and I had custody of the boy. She didn't pay me not one cent of child support the whole time I had it. Because had she had to, she wouldn't have given me custody of them.
Yeah.
So I took care of them by myself with no help until they got big enough to take care of themselves. And then all of a sudden she started planting stuff in their heads and they went back with her. And of course, when they went back, I had to start paying child support again.
Oh, wow.
That's the way the law set up. Now, literally, I took care of them because I wanted to, because it was my responsibility. And I knew had I asked her for child support, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Right.
And I wouldn't have been able to get the kids. So in order for me to do what I need to do by the kids, I was like, screw the child support. I'm just going to do what I need to do by my boys.
Right.
You know, a lot of people ain't going to do that.
No.
You know, a lot of y'all talk a good game. A lot of people ain't going to do that.
Right.
But that's how I ended up getting custody of them.
And so where did you all end up after this? So they went back and then...
They went back. She really they were on autopilot at that point.
Okay.
You know, I'm gonna tell y'all this just because you want the book. My youngest son actually died back in 2011, and that's why I wrote the book.
Oh.
And but she pretty much just used them for money like she did me. And And eventually, you know, I don't know if my oldest son ever caught on to the fact that his mom was using them or not, but that's what she did. And we actually have a horrible relationship now because of her. But you know, one thing I tell y'all this all the time on my Facebook page, I ain't finna worry about nobody not speaking to me if I know I ain't did nothing to you. And I don't care who it is. So, you know, he can take that and do what he needs to do with it. That's not my problem. I did what I need to do. Does it hurt? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know that's gotta hurt.
It does, but you know, but I'm not gonna ruminate on it. I'm not gonna sit here and worry about it.
Yeah, because you can't change him. Yeah, he has to get there, right?
Yeah, and I've done what I was supposed to do, and that's all God has asked me to do, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's some real parenting right there. When you just let go and let God.
It's hard parenting, and like I live my life like that. There are a lot of people who were like, "Well, Tony's mean." I'm not mean, but I'm not gonna sit up and run behind you when I'm trying to help. Like that's what we're not gonna do. Yeah. That's what we're not gonna do.
Talk to me about so let's shift gears for a second. I'll plug that book one more time.
Okay, Walking in True Fatherhood.
Okay, and they can get that where? All right.
Amazon.
Okay. You mentioned with your mom and you know God and faith and recognizing that the church has not always been very supportive. When it I know that's putting it mildly. Yes,
it still ain't.
Yes, I know. But talk to me about the role of faith in your life.
I'm glad that I have a firm religious foundation. And let me tell you what that means. That does not mean that I know how to speak in tongues and you know, cast out demons and handle snakes and all that crazy stuff people do. It's just really just having a relationship with God, a relationship that I know that I have with God. I could tell you some stuff that, like right now, me thinking about it, I just want to like just run and scream and holler because I know what God has done for me. And I'm not one of those people that feel like you need to talk about it all the time, because I think a lot of times I hate seeing people go out to dinner and they all grab hands around the table at Red Lobster and bow their heads and pray for 5 minutes. Y'all just showing out. Y'all just trying to show people what good Christians you are when you're not living that way. So like, I'm glad that I had a really good firm foundation. And I'm glad that when I came into myself and knew that I was gay, I'm glad that I knew that God loved me regardless of what these people say, regardless as to how y'all want to misquote these scriptures and cast people into hell and tell people they're not saved. You know, so I ended up, it's also in the book. Me and my ex got married in 2009, and I ended up, it was just a whole bunch of mess, but I ended up leaving the Baptist church and leaving that Baptist church. Then I went to another Baptist church because I thought they were a little bit cooler. They weren't cool either. So I ended up leaving the Black Baptist church because of the hypocrisy that goes on. You know, they want to talk about people being gay. Y'all around here screwing the piano lady and the piano man. You know, but it's okay for you to do it. But if I just find one person that I say I love, even though they're the same gender, then all of a sudden that's a problem for y'all. But y'all ain't got no problem with the pastor coming up with this 36-year-old son, out of the blue. And then you marry his mama after your wife died. Y'all ain't got no problem that y'all still going to give your tithes and offering. But if I say I love a man, then all of a sudden that's just wrong. God don't work like that. Y'all work like that. God does not work like that. You know, and so like, I'm just glad that I had that. Now, I actually am part of another church fellowship, St. Junior United Methodist Church. We're a series of house churches. We actually started meeting online during the pandemic, and I'm part of the leadership team there. I couldn't have been a part of no leadership team in no Black Baptist church.
Definitely not in the Black Baptist church.
Especially once they find out for sure. As long as you don't say you gay, it's fine. I have a friend named Tommy Watkins. He's an Episcopal priest now. He wrote this book called Living Out Loud. Tommy grew up with my younger brother in Hueytown, Alabama, and he was talking about how he got a scholarship to Annapolis, the Naval Academy. And everybody knows don't ask, don't tell. But it's don't ask, don't tell, don't harass, don't pursue. So he got harassed and pursued in the Navy, and they put him out, and he sued. Well, he talks about this in his book. He said, you know, when he was in the Methodist church, the bishop knew he was gay, but just didn't want you to tell nobody. He's like, well, you know, Brother Johnson that played the piano, he gay. No, he's not. He said, Brother Johnson come to church every Sunday with pancake number 9 and rouge. Brother Johnson gay.
Not the pancake number 9.
And rouge. The bishop said, Brother Johnson ain't said he was gay. So it's okay as long as you treat it like a dirty little secret. But if you're not sitting around here being worried about what these people are going to think about you, then that becomes a problem. That's the hypocrisy of the church.
And then you can't be naked and unashamed. And how do you have a relationship with God if you can't be who you are?
Most of these people are lying to themselves and don't know who they are. Like that's how they do it. They don't know who they are for real. Like the average person needs to be having a good therapist, a little cup of chai tea, and like working through your issues. But like we don't do that because in the Black community we've stigmatized mental health. You know, I have a therapist. Y'all better be glad I got a therapist.
Yes, we're thankful that you have a therapist.
Sometimes I know he look at my Facebook page and like, oh God, I'm a failure. But like literally, you know, a lot of people still don't know who they are. And that's a problem, you know, and especially, you know, with the religious aspect, and I know we're probably gonna talk about this later, but this might be a good segue into the HIV conversation.
It is.
So I remember listening to a radio station one Sunday, and this preacher was on there talking about how HIV is God's punishment for homosexuality and all of them going to hell, and God is da. Well, we don't talk about the fact that straight people have HIV too, and it was nothing new. Again, with whiteness, when the HIV epidemic first started, it was just gay white men, but there were Black women and Black men, Latinx men and women who all were catching HIV, but we just kind of focused on white men because, you know, this is America. So, you know, so like when I think about what the church, and you were there.
Oh, yes.
When we were down in Phoenix City.
Yes.
And you know, and I know I pissed that one preacher off because I said this: the Black church has been at the forefront of every obstacle that has affected Black people since slavery. I said, this is what pissed me off. I said, you know, we know call and response in the Black church. If I say God is good, you say all the time. I say all the time, you say God is good. I said, you know, when the Black people said help, we need help because of HIV, we ain't hear nothing back. We still ain't heard nothing back. Black churches are a problem when it comes to HIV because this whole message of hate the sin, love the sinner don't work. You can't separate a person from who they are. We all sinners. We all sinners.
Come on, saved by grace. Come on.
We all sinners saved by grace. So like when you tell your pastor that you have HIV and they put you out the church or decide they want to tell everybody, that's not God's word. That's not
a
God's
violation
word.
Of your privacy.
Right. And so when we talk about HIV stigma, a lot of it is deeply rooted in religious dogma. You know, you're telling people that first of all, just because you're gay, you sinning and going to hell. But that's not enough. Now you got this disease that God has put on you as a punishment. That ain't how God works. That ain't how my God works. Your God, man. My God don't work like that. You know, my God does not work like that. So like when it comes to HIV stigma, like I said, stigma is what's killing people right now.
Right.
Because like what does stigma look like? Stigma is like when you think of something, it's a bad feeling. Like, ooh, that's what stigma looks like. But what does it look like when it comes to HIV prevention? It looks like me not wanting to get an HIV test.
Yes.
Because by merely getting an HIV test sends the message to people that you've done something nasty and disgusting that you should be ashamed of.
Absolutely.
So people don't get tested because of stigma, because of what other people may think. But it doesn't stop there. So
come on, preach to the people.
So like in HIV, you have like the prevention aspect with testing. Then you have linkage and retention. Linkage and retention is pretty much going to the doctor once you find out you got HIV so you get treated. HIV treatment is so siloed that if you're in a small town and you go into the health department, they send you through that back door in the bottom. We already know.
You already know where you're going.
Yeah, so I got to deal with that too.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not going to
go walk of shame.
The walk of shame. You know, we've all done it, you know, but you can't go get treated because you're ashamed to walk into the building because of what?
Stigma.
So let's just say that you overcome the stigma, not getting tested. You get tested, you get linkage to care, you get your meds. Well, you open that pill, and every time you take this pill out, you're reminded.
That's your reminder.
That you're going to hell because you're gay, God sent this disease on you. This is your punishment. One of the saddest things that I've ever witnessed was when we were doing testing. Me and one of my employees were at a Walgreens, and Andrea was like, "Well, let's see if this guy wants to get tested." I said, "He probably don't want to get tested." So she asked the guy if he wanted to get tested. He said, "Yeah." Came in, and Andrea is just the cutest little thing, just always bubbly. Like, I like her hearing her voice because her voice releases dopamine for me. Like, she's that type of person. So about 30 minutes went by, and she hadn't come out yet. And I'm like, "What? Where is she? Like, what's going on?" Well, she finally comes out, and she's pissed off after giving somebody a test. And I'm like, "Andrea, what's wrong?"
Yeah, why are you mad giving somebody a test?
She's like, "You go in there and talk to him." I'm like, "Okay." So I go in, and I asked the guy, I said, "Well, Andrew told me the test was reactive. We're going to do another test just to make sure, and I'll let you know what we're going to do then." I looked at his form, and on the form, it asked you when was the last time you got tested. Well, this was in the middle of summer, like July. He had been tested in March, and he had tested positive. I'm like, "Oh.
You already tested positive."
Yeah, I see you already tested positive. Like, why are you here? Stigma. He says, "Well, I just kind of wanted to be sure." I'm like, "Well, what did you get tested at?" He said, "The health department." I'm like, "Oh, they sure. Like, you got tested.
Positive.
You positive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, tell me about your diagnosis." He said, "Well, I was working at some restaurant." And this is what he told me. He said he drank some dirty water. Like, it was some water in the sink, and somebody he ended up drinking the water. And that's how he contracted HIV. And I'm sitting there like, okay, that's a lie, but I'm gonna let you
right, because I see where you are.
I see where you are. And so I'm like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, are you taking medications?" He said, "No." I'm like, "Why not? You got insurance?" "Well, yeah, I got insurance." "Well, why aren't you taking medication?" He said, "I just don't feel like, I should. Like, why don't you feel like you should?" I said, "If you don't take medication, you're gonna die." He said, "Well, it's kind of like, I see it as kind of like my punishment. Like when a girl gets pregnant and she gotta have a baby." I said, "Yeah, but the baby ain't gonna kill her."
Yes.
I was so frustrated.
And that's not punishment, sir, but his poor worth.
Deanie, I was so irritated with him. Like, I was so irritated with him. I said, "Look," I said, "I can take you to your, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go." I said, "Well, look, can I just get your number just so I can check in with you?" He gave me his number.
He did give you his number.
He gave me his number, and I checked on him maybe twice before he stopped answering the phone. And I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't know where he is right now. But, like, that's what church.
That's so heartbreaking. That's so heartbreaking.
And somehow or another, y'all think y'all doing the work of the Lord.
And the sad part is I'm already over here feeling like I've been cast out.
Yeah.
And the one place where I should be able to go to be reminded that I'm loved, I'm always God's child. No matter what test I may have had that was positive.
Right.
I'm always going to be unconditionally loved.
Right.
And then you take that away from me. What do I have? Because you got to talk about how people react once they know that you're positive.
So actually, I'm about to do a disclosure clinic with I'm doing some contract work with a pediatric HIV clinic. So these are kids who were vertically infected. That means that their parents had it and they contracted through them, or they were young and just called it the good old fashioned way. And so disclosure is really, really important. Knowing when to disclose and how to disclose and if you should disclose. Like, there are a lot of states like Alabama, and I'm pretty sure Georgia has laws that criminalize you for having sex with someone and don't disclose your status. Now, do I think that you should disclose your status? Yes, I do. But I don't think not disclosing your status should be a jail sentence.
A criminal, yeah.
And people will push back on me, but this is why I tell them, I'm like, "Well, you didn't tell me about your diabetes." "Well, you can't catch my diabetes." "Well, I'm virally suppressed. You can't catch my HIV. So why I need to tell you my status again?" HIV treatment has come so far.
Yeah.
If you take your medications, you can't pass it anymore, even with unprotected condoms sex. So, like, if I have a disease that you can't catch, no matter how we have sex, then I don't understand why it's your business on our first date or our first outing or whatever. Do I think people should tell? Yes, I think they should. But like, there's a lot of secrets people hold that they don't tell people about. And people say, well, yeah, but that ain't gonna kill nobody. Ain't nobody telling you having unprotected sex. No one's forcing you to do that. If you were raped, that's different. But you having sex with someone that you kind of don't know, or somebody that you know forever, and you choose not to protect yourself.
Not to be safe.
Yeah. That's your responsibility. That is not my responsibility to take care of your sexual health. My responsibility is my sexual health. And so like, we end up with that. So like, you've seen this reaction with me as well. It's interesting when I tell people that I'm HIV positive, they like, oh, okay. But when I tell you that I'm a colon cancer survivor, that's just so great. Let me tell you something. If I was perfectly healthy, not anything wrong with me, and you told me in this one hand, I got a blue pill that's going to give you cancer, I got a red pill that's going to give you HIV, I'm taking the red pill.
You're going to take the HIV.
And you know why? I take one pill a day, and I don't think about it no more. One pill a day, and I don't think about it no more. Cancer is some scary stuff. Like, the minute my stomach rumbled the wrong way, I'm like, oh, did this shit come back?
Yeah.
Because
you're constantly on edge.
You're constantly on edge. Yeah. The slightest thing is not right. But there are people like that with HIV, like not realizing that you're good. You take your medicine, you are absolutely good. Like, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But people have like made HIV seem like such a horrible, terrible disease that, you got to tell everybody you got it. Oh, COVID.
Okay.
Now, nobody put no laws on the books over the last 2 years that said that if you have COVID and you don't tell nobody, you should go to jail.
In fact, people were fighting for their right not to tell people their status regarding COVID.
But let me tell you this, and this is how pervasive stigma is. Why the hell would me, if I walk in the room with HIV, I could walk around the room, slap a couple of people, wipe some sweat from my arm in your face. Guess what? You're not going to catch it.
You're not going to catch it. Yeah.
But if I walk in there unmasked and breathe too loud, I could kill a whole room full of people. Why is that not criminalized? So when y'all around here talking about, well, they need to tell, why are y'all not telling y'all HIV status? I mean, your COVID status. When I had COVID, I did a whole series of videos. I was COVID positive for a week, November 2020. Why? Maybe the grace of God, I don't know. I didn't have not one symptom. I didn't have no fever. I had no cough, no nothing. I did videos of me walking. I walked 7 miles one day. But I was telling people, this is my particular version of COVID. This
Everybody's different.
Everybody.
Right.
But literally, if I was contagious, I walked to a room with people, I could kill them. Why is that not criminal? But y'all around here get mad. I ain't made no deal with you when I walk into a room with COVID. But if we having sex, we done made some agreements.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be some consent in here.
Where we doing it, how we doing it, who doing it,
absolutely. Yeah.
So, but y'all want to criminalize that. But ain't no, as a matter of fact, they did the exact opposite. They even went so far as to say, if I'm an employer and I make you come to work with COVID and you give it to 15 folks, they can't sue me. Remember that?
Yeah.
So that's what stigma does. And when you really think about it, it all has to do with this religious dogma, and you want to punish people because they don't look like you, they don't act like you, and they don't identify as you.
Well, and if, like you said, if you think that this is a sin, I'm being punished for my sin, then you feel like only people who are also being punished should get HIV/AIDS. The rest of us good folk, whoever good folk insert will be, whatever that is, shouldn't be exposed to this, because clearly we're living an upright and but I do recognize that people have in their mind this image of what having HIV/AIDS is. That you're skinny, you got lesions all on your body. You touch me. If I drink out your cup, folks out here throwing stuff away, giving people paper products so they can throw it. I don't want you to. Right? If I shake your hand, if I sit where you sat.
Still. This 2022. Still with those antiquated thoughts.
Yeah, there's a lot of ignorance actually about, as I know you well know, working in the field for as long as you have, that there's a lot of miseducation that people have because they're still holding on to, again, that to even associate with you,
Yeah, but
I would be punished.
a lot of times they do that just to make themselves feel better
About them,
at
who
least
they
I'm
are,
not
whatever you
gay.
got. Yeah, well, you know,
Yeah.
because people will say that. At least I'm not
Oh,
gay.
yeah.
At least I don't have H, and I can be out here passing on herpes like is
Gonorrhea,
yeah, you know, like
tricks.
Tic Tacs. But however, I don't have HIV/AIDS.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so I mean, I don't get that, but that's what we are. And like again, when you add in the religious component, like Jesus was actually hanging out with the lepers.
All the
like,
lepers,
y'all ain't doing none of Jesus'
adulterers,
work.
all the good stuff.
You're right. Y'all ain't doing none of Jesus' work. None of it. None of it. You know, and it's really just sad.
Do you feel like, so here, you know, I'm thinking about this young man who presented drinking the dirty water. Do you feel like there is, because we know that there are so many things that can impact a person's employability, because there was a time when you were asked to disclose whether or not you had HIV/AIDS. How do you feel like navigating the workforce with all of, like you said, all of these identities, HIV/AIDS, gay, black male, all of the above? How do these things affect a person's ability to be able to take care of themselves?
Well, let me also say this. So, like, okay. I think there are a lot of external forces that affect that. But you know, the worst stigma is the stigma that we carry within ourselves. So, like, you know, I'm a big HIV advocate and activist now. But like, if this was like 2007, we wouldn't have been having this conversation because I had to grow.
You had to learn
yourself. I had
Yeah.
to learn myself. Like we talked earlier, we talking about people don't know themselves. Like I had to learn myself and know myself for myself. You know, so like we need more education. We need more people like me who are like, okay, I got HIV now. What? Like, what you gonna do? Like, I got you ugly. Like, I think you still gonna be ugly. You know, so like, what you gonna do? So like, we need people. There's a video. I didn't see this. So like, if y'all are listening, if you go to CNN.com/blind angels, one word, they did this small mini documentary about the work I did with mentoring younger people with HIV. And I really said some stuff that I was really impressed with. But one of the things that I said one of the things that I said, I think I stole it from somebody else, was that people can't be what they can't see. So like, yeah, I did steal that from somebody else. But like, people can't be what they can't see. So like, if you want people to know that living with HIV is okay, they got to see people living with HIV being okay. You know, you have to be able to see that. So that's one of the reasons why I do live my life in the way that I do. But like, we really need to do a lot more to do something about stigma, because I promise you, that's the thing that's killing people. It causes people not to get tested. It causes people not to take their medications. It just causes you to live in this bubble that you're afraid to let people in. And the other thing that I'm really encouraged with, so like doing this disclosure workshop that I'm planning for these young people, I want them to realize that you'd be surprised the amount of support that you get. And I'm not talking about that little tinkling brass support. I'm talking about real support from people who really care about you once they find out your status. There are gonna be some people who are gonna be stupid, but you don't need them anyway. You don't need them anyway. I remember my HIV coming out story. I had just started working for this AIDS organization in Birmingham that I'm no longer affiliated with. And we had gone over to Huffman High School to do an HIV training and testing. And I had told them I was going to tell my story. Well, I get over there and I realized I have a nephew who goes to the school, and I hadn't told my parents yet. This is 2013.
Oh, wow.
So I get to the school, I'm like, shit, I ain't told mama no. So I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna have to do it. So I called my mom and I told her, I was like, hey, I'm over at T's school and we're gonna do some testing. Oh, baby, that's so fine. That's so great. I'm so proud of you. I said, something else I need to tell you though. She's like, what? I said, well, I've been living with HIV for the last 20 years. She's like, oh, really? I'm like, yes, ma'am. I said, I know you and the girls gonna have questions, but any questions you want, just let me know. She goes, well, are you taking medication? I said, yes. She said, is it working? I'm like, yeah, it's working. She said, well, okay.
I know you were shocked.
I'm like, I've been holding on this for 20 years, and this is what I get.
Right, like this is how you gonna respond.
This is what I get.
All healthy.
So right, all healthy and stuff. So this is all around World AIDS Day. So, but that's how my mom had educated herself even before me, right? So then we get to World AIDS Day, and I did this interview in the Birmingham News back when people read newspapers. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. My friend Chantel Mosley, the real woman, then called me, Tony Walker, what's this in the newspaper? I'm like, what you talking about? About you having AIDS. I'm like, well, I have HIV. She said, you done made me cuss out my husband. I'm like, what you talking about? So her husband saw the article in the newspaper. And like, so how long Tony been living with HIV? All gay people don't have HIV. I'm so tired of y'all getting it. And he's like, no, it's right here.
It's in the paper. He said it. It's out of his mouth.
Baby, she called me and she cussed me out. And she cussed me out because she said to me, you mean to tell me you've been living with this? And you ain't talking about you've been dealing with this shit by yourself? Yeah. You didn't have to deal with this by yourself. And at that point, I realized it was okay. Because the people who are going to be there for you, they're going to be there for you. And the people who are going to love you, they're going to love you. Those people, they don't matter. We waste too much time with people who don't matter.
My God.
And since that moment, I don't waste time with people who don't matter. I will dismiss just like that. I will dismiss this because you don't matter to me. But the people who matter, they know who they are. And they know that they matter.
Yeah. So that is a good segue into how can people be supportive, right? Now, I know everybody doesn't get the response that mama gave you. I know that everybody doesn't have that real friend who's like, how dare you be dealing with this on your own? Like we don't have a relationship. Like I don't love you. Like how dare you? How dare you treat me like I don't love you? Right. But how can people be supportive? You mentioned, that people do need to get educated, and you already dropped a couple of ways that people can get educated, but how can we be supportive?
The first thing is watch what you say. People will say stuff like, especially in the crowd, like I told you about that probate show that will never be seen or heard from again. But like people say stuff without thinking sometimes. Sometimes just go along with the crowd. Well, I don't want to get that shit. Well, they say he got the baggage. Well, stop saying stuff like that. Because you don't know who's around. You don't know what they got. Not only do I have to deal with that with HIV back, I used to have to deal with it with being a straight passing gay man. Them punks, and I'd be like, ooh, can't send that around them because they might call me out. But stop saying stuff like that because you don't never know when you're entertaining people who are different than you. So stop saying stupid stuff. That's the first thing. Because if I am living with HIV, you the last person I'm gonna tell, because I done heard you talking about Johnny down the street. But then when you do find people, stop saying stupid stuff like, well, babe, we all see it in different ways. Well, just stop saying that. It sounds stupid. Stop saying that. But what you can do is ask people if they need help. How are you doing with this? Especially if you find out. And also people like to gossip. And like, I'm the person, I'm only gonna say something that I can bear repeating. But like people, well, they say he got this. I'm gonna go to him, bro. They was talking about you got HIV. You need some help. Because if you do, I'm here for you. Don't worry about what they say. You go ahead and live your life the way you want to live your life. Take your meds, drink plenty of water, and don't slap nobody on the way to the stuff. Just being there for people. I think we have become so churchy.
Not churchy in a good way.
And not
like you said, not being of Christ and not being of God or whatever your beliefs are.
But not only that, we rely on too many sayings and too many things that really don't have any weight.
The trite expressions.
The trite expressions. Like, I have 2 friends on my Facebook feed who have lost children in the last 2 weeks. Both of them lost. One lost a son, one lost a daughter. And I know because this happened to me. People are saying stupid stuff to them. Well, God has his plan. God
they had to get their angel back.
Don't nobody want to hear that.
Nobody's suffering anymore. Yeah,
nobody wants to hear that.
In life, no one
shut
wants
up
to hear
and
that.
find something else to say and stop blaming that mess on God. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. So like these little sayings that people say, just say, look, if you need me, I'm here.
Come on, support.
That's all you need to say. Don't say I know how you feel, because you don't. You have no idea how they feel. If you need me, I'm here. You know, that's the only thing I say to people at this point. If you need me, I'm here. What do you need? What can I do?
Yeah.
But other than that, don't matter want to hear all this. I was listening to the radio station on the way over here, and they were talking about that shooting, the last shooting in Texas that happened a couple hours ago. 14 elementary schools and a teacher dead, plus the shooter. And this man was on the radio talking. The problem is we need to put prayer back in the school. That's the problem. The guy was like, well, how do we fix it? Put prayer back in school. Prayer ain't gonna fix shit. That is not gonna fix any of this.
Faith without works
is dead. It's not gonna fix any of this. God gave us 5 senses, most of us, to get off your butt and do something. Go to the polls and vote, so we don't have these people not making laws to keep people who don't need guns away from guns. You know, go to the polls, and people in the office not going to make stupid HIV criminalization laws while you let people run around here with COVID, kill 1 million people. Do you know 1 million people have died from COVID?
1 million people.
Do you know we still have not yet reached 1 million people to die from HIV in this country?
I do.
Let that sink in.
I do.
Let that sink in. You know, so that's what you can do. Make sure that people are actually doing what's right. But like, you know, all these little trite sayings, nobody want to hear that. Like, ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody got time for that.
Are there some websites, some books? You mentioned
CDC.gov is always a good resource. You have online magazines like thebody.com, which is really, really good. If you just Google HIV resources, most states have them. Some people have AIDS service organizations or community-based organizations that have people. Heck, find me. like call me, like seriously, find me on Facebook, call me. Even though I'm not working in HIV anymore, you know, people still know. I typically get at least 1 or 2 calls a week from people who either know somebody, they need some help themselves, and I still do what I can do to help people because it's still that important to me. Like you ain't
why you're here with me tonight.
Right. Like you ain't gotta work in it in order to care about it. But yeah, so like, I mean, there are a lot of resources out there for people. But you know, and most important, you know, just be honest with yourself. Like one of the things I'm gonna talk about in this disclosure training I'm doing is I need you to say to yourself that you have HIV, because a lot of people haven't told themselves that they have. We're too busy, you know, putting on the face for the public and doing it for the vine that we have not dealt with our own truth. Like walking your truth. This is your truth. No one else's. Walking your truth. And again, if you need some resources, call me. My phone number 205-422-9855. Like I answer my phone all the time. I don't care.
And does.
And I won't hang up because people call me. I know you didn't know this number. I know how to hang up if I want to talk to you. I know how to hang up my phone. I got an iPhone so I can block you.
We'll block quickly.
And we'll block you quickly. You know, but like, yeah, just reach out to people. Like, there's no reason for people to be dealing with this by themselves. And you know, I really need Black people to step up. Like, I need Black people. I need Black churches.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
Black people to step up. Step up. You know, because actually in the white kingdom, HIV is not as bad as it used to be because they stepped up. They stepped up. Especially like, you know, the right wing crazies. They're gonna be right wing crazies. But like there are a lot of white people who were like, well, you know, I got cancer. They got HIV. We all good, you know. But Black people, we spend too much time trying to dog each other out.
Because we have to, you know, we have to put things in a hierarchy. So I have to go ahead and say, well, my cancer is different than your HIV.
Yeah, because you asked for that, but you smoked 5 packs of cigarettes since you was 3 and wonder why you got lung cancer. Get out of here with that. So yeah, but serious, I'm serious. Like, there's no reason for people to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I know how to keep my mouth shut. I mean, I've had people disclose stuff to me all the time, and my goal is always just to help people.
Yeah. Because you can protect people's privacy and still support them.
Absolutely. And they also tell you this, everybody ain't got to know your HIV status. Like, I am in no way saying that you need to tell everybody your HIV status. You need to tell yourself.
That was an important point.
And act accordingly.
Absolutely. Well, and like you said, now you say I am responsible for my own sexual health. And so part of me being responsible for my own sexual health is acknowledging what I have going on with my sexual health, but also doing the things that are going to protect the people that I love and care about.
And yourself.
And myself. Exactly. Exactly. But you mentioned that you've come a long way. It's funny. You're like, I was 20 years in the game before I told my mama. But the mental health component of that is if I acknowledge it, if I say it out loud, it's real. And then what?
It is, but here's the other thing. And this is what I tell people. You can't tell it but once, and I can tell it better than you. So while we sitting around here like I was for 20 years, hoping and praying, nobody found out. I had myself in this cage.
Nice. Protected space.
It's right. So like, and I've had people, I had this ex-boyfriend. This was so, and in retrospect, that might be why my mom took it so good. But I had this guy I was dating, bad shit crazy. And when we broke up, he went and told my mom and my two best friends that I had given him HIV. Now keep in mind, he was HIV positive when I met him. But because you want to be evil and knew I hadn't told him about it, you figured like this was gonna hurt me. It didn't do nothing. Well, no skin on my back, but I had to realize at that point, don't let people have something over you that they can use against you. So after that, my whole thing was, I can tell it better than you can. I can tell it better than you can. And you can't tell it but once, because once it's out there, it's out there. So be yourself and live free and walk in your truth.
Yeah. Well, speaking of walking in truth and living free, you have had a couple of podcasts. I know they have been on hiatus, but we are going to be breathing some life. So talk to the people about what you have coming forward.
So I'm about to jumpstart my podcast again. So the first one we did was called Same Crap, Different Day. You can find it on most of the podcast platforms, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitch is there. And it was really, it started with me, my friend Derek and Rashad, as three Black men who were the same but different. We were all Black. At that time, we were probably all under 40, but Rashad was straight. I was a much older gay than Derek. And we realized that we all have the same problems, just same crap, different day. So that started, we ended up, Rashad ended up leaving, and we brought in one of my friends, Quanah May. And Quanah added a whole nother flavor to the podcast. So her, Derek, and I have talked about rebooting that one, but I had another one called Let Me Say This, because with Derek and Quanah, I could never get a word in edgewise, which was fun. But I had another podcast called Let Me Say This, because I found myself saying, let me say this a lot of times. If you listen to Same Crap, Different Day, you'll hear me, well, let me say this. But I'm gonna reintroduce that one it's gonna be called The Colored Section. I've already changed the name, so you can find The Colored Section. And it's really just going to look at Black issues and how we're dealing with it. It's going to have me, my friend Wendell, and then a guy named Keith Townsend from North Carolina. But I just like talking about issues. I like educating people, and I want people to know that you're okay. Like, you're okay just the way you are.
Absolutely. And we thank you for all of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Free of charge a lot of times, but then also most of the time, but then also the work that you're doing where people do give you some coins. So I want to thank you for being on our show. Our guest, Tony Christian Walker, on Tea Time with Dr. Tarver. Look up for the upcoming episode next week, My Transition Story, Becoming Byron Omari, which will be Tuesday, May 31st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's always a pleasure, sir.
Always.
You take good care of you and you be safe.
You too, love.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.